Welcome to Beyond the Nudge, the podcast for women over 50 who are ready to grow joyfully, take action with ease, and fully step into their age of empowerment. I'm your host, Kia Eileen, and this is your invitation to go beyond the whispers of intuition, dive deeply into your potential, and create the life and impact you've always dreamed of. Expect monthly themes, transformative insights, powerful frameworks, and practical tools to help you reconnect with your purpose, overcome challenges, and align with your most radiant self. So, here's what's in store: practical wisdom, actionable tools and frameworks from spirituality, psychology, and metaphysics to help you grow, inspiring stories from me and from others who've transformed their lives and embraced their full selves, empowered action to help you move from dreaming to doing with clarity and confidence. This is more than a podcast. It's a space for transformation, empowerment, and connection. If you're ready to move beyond the nudge of intuition and into your fullest expression, you are in the right place. So let's get started. Your best you is waiting beyond the nudge. So, welcome to this week's episode of Beyond the Nudge. Beyond the Nudge. Um, so, as we work through this month's theme, the power of possibility, the power of possibility, I'd love to, first of all, explore what possibility means. So, what does possibility mean to you? So, possibility means to me something that's wide and open and expansive. It's filled with creativity and it's endless. It means anything can happen. Possibility is you. Possibility is me. We are the kind of creative forces that exist in this world, filled with, all of the things that we need, all the things that we are, all the things that we can become to create something truly special. We are possibility. And so sometimes when we think of possibility, about trying something new, we start to look for certainty before we step out to do things. So think about the last time you might have thought to yourself, well, I'd love to try something new, but I want to know that I'm going to be safe. I want to know that I'm not going to look silly. I want to know that it's going to be a success. And so we're looking for certainty. But possibility isn't necessarily about certainty. Possibility is the willingness to try, the willingness to try. And when we start to think about, trying something new, we get the what ifs. We get the what ifs. So, what if I fail? What if I get judged? What if I look silly? What if they criticize me? What if it succeeds? What if I become a success and everything changes? What if I get overwhelmed? And so we start to just get buried under the what ifs. And so this episode, episode 11, I'm calling it No More What Ifs. We're going to leave those what ifs behind because they're the thing that might be holding you back. And they're there to protect you, of course. But this is about breaking through, about moving through, and about stepping on your path and stepping into the space of your truth. And so, I really want us to get clear that when we sink into the space of the what ifs, it can stop us dead in our tracks. And because we start playing out those scenarios, we start living in the future. What if is not about something that's happening in the present, because if you look around in the present, you're probably safe and you're probably okay. The what ifs live in the future. They haven't really happened yet, but they can still stop you in your tracks. And as we get older, there are some real reasons why we may get stopped in our tracks. We may, I guess, succumb to the what ifs, where we stop taking risks. And so, as we get older, there are some neurological changes that happen in the body. We become more cautious. Our dopamine levels start to change, and the dopamine levels, it's those neurotransmitters that are linked to motivation and our reward centers. Well, our dopamine levels go down. And so we become risk averse. We don't want to take those big leaps. We don't want to feel the uncertainty. We become, shy about sort of striking out and trying something new. The prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for decision making and planning, well, it becomes more sensitive to perceived risks. And so we begin to overthink and overthink and overthink. And we start to think more about consequences, and we feel more of the fear of those perceived things that have not happened yet. We become more susceptible to, ooh, I don't want to try that, or I don't want to do that. And it becomes more about that fear than it does about the possibility. So we're thinking more about the consequences. Or maybe we've lived lives, and of course, we've experienced different things, and maybe we're just tired. Maybe there's fatigue going on. Maybe you've raised families and children, and now you're taking care of parents. Maybe there's that caregiving role that's extended now from children to parents. Maybe there have been traumas or disappointments in your life, heartbreak, heartache. Maybe you just feel like, well, I've given everything. I've given my all, and now I just need rest. I don't want to try anything new. Thank you very much. You've already survived a lot, and now you just want to rest. And I do get that. Maybe there's some societal or cultural underpinnings that kind of make you feel like you shouldn't try for something new. Maybe there's messaging around acting your age or slowing down. Or maybe you just feel generally invisible in a society that really does celebrate youth and what's new. Why don't you act your age? And a big one that I sometimes hear is, when is it going to be enough for you? When do you have enough? And you are you're shamed for wanting more. You know, why can't you just be happy with what you've got? As if wanting more for your life is somehow selfish or foolish. Or maybe you think it's too late for reinventing yourself. And so you take a step back. Maybe there are of course, there are the hormonal shifts that happen in our lives as our hormones change, estrogen and progesterone levels change. And so you might feel more tired. Maybe there's insomnia. There's changes within the body. Concentration levels may change. You generally just feel like you lose confidence. Anxiety can increase, self-doubt can increase, confidence can decrease. The desire to be seen changes and shifts, and you might want to sort of shrink back and turn into a bit of a wallflower. I've heard quite a lot, and I felt it myself. It's like I just don't feel like my old self anymore. And that same energy that I may have had in the past doesn't really exist anymore. But here's the thing, even in the space of what we know are changes, it's important to be aware that these changes are happening, but they don't have to define us. They don't have to define who we are and what we are becoming. And so it's really important that we take charge. We take charge of these thoughts. It's important that we embrace our sovereignty. Yes, these things are happening, but we can control our destiny. And so it's important that we don't entertain the what ifs, because the what ifs can do a lot of damage. It's more than just a thought. It can change things for us, in our brain, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. So in the brain, the what ifs can trigger a response in the amygdala because you're actually playing out scenarios in the future. And as the brain is playing those things out, it's thinking, there's a threat here. There's a threat here because you're seeing it, you're feeling it, you're imagining it. Well, the brain doesn't necessarily know what is imagination, what is real. So it's taking that future projection as a real threat, and it triggers your fight, flight, or freeze response. And so your cortisol levels increase, your adrenaline increases, and it triggers the prefrontal cortex to say, hey, there's something dangerous happening here. And so it becomes harder to empower yourself because everything in your brain is saying we need to prepare for safety. And so you become more sensitive to risks and less willing to make the decisions that might propel you forward into something new. Maybe you overthink and you procrastinate, and your emotions are easily triggered. It's because the brain is waiting for the threat. And so when you sink into the what ifs, what if I fail? What if I fall down? What if I look stupid? Or what if I get judged? What if I get criticized? All of those have an immediate effect on the brain. They have an immediate effect on the emotions as well, because it can breed anxiety and worry and guilt, self doubt, senses of unworthiness. And when we're living in the future, our nervous system thinks it's real. And so it can really make us feel low and make us feel a little bit hopeless for the future. We become disconnected from ourselves. We become disconnected from our desires. We become disconnected from our joy and that sense that this is a new phase of my life that is just beginning and I get to chart this course. Well, we cut all of that off when we allow ourselves to be in the space of what if. What ifs also, of course, if they're affecting the brain and our emotions, it's going to have an effect on us physically. So our breathing might become more shallow. Maybe it's affecting our muscles. So our muscles are preparing for that fight or flight. So our muscles maybe become more constricted, ready for battle or for running or for freezing. Digestive issues, insomnia, fatigue, all of this really does play a role in chronic stress. How we feel physically can be determined by those fleeting thoughts of what if? What if I'm not enough? What if I'm not enough can have a direct effect on, and you can feel that in the body when you begin to sort of trace your thoughts and your emotions. They can be felt in the body. And so it definitely has an effect on how what our health is, and how we can show up physically, what happens physically in our bodies. What ifs can even have an effect on, wanting to move or feeling good. Just those thoughts. Another reason why we must try and at all costs to resist those what ifs, those negative what ifs. And spiritually, if we're saying, what if, and then that negative thought, well, we're disconnecting ourselves from our inspiration. We're disconnecting ourselves from our intuition because inspiration has probably been speaking to us, speaking to you, saying, I'd love to do this. I'd love to try this. I would love to be this version of myself, living in my truth. And if you bring in the what, if you disconnect yourself from that inspiration, from your intuition, pulling you in a direction that feels really good to you. And where are you feeling it? Well, you're probably feeling it in your heart. So it's disconnecting you from your heart. It makes your heart close down. And your heart, if you're really listening to your heart is never going to lead you astray. So maybe that what if is actually taking you off course, taking you further and further from the thing that you truly want, that you truly desire, the version of you that is waiting to be born. You're pulling yourself away from that spiritually if you're entertaining those what ifs. So maybe you've heard, the expression, so where your focus goes, energy follows. So where focus goes, energy flows. So when you're entertaining, when you're in those negative what ifs, you're actually bringing yourself closer to the thing that you don't want, because that's where the energy is flowing. That's where the energy is following. So it's really important energetically, spiritually, to say, I'm not going, I hear you what if, but I'm not going to stay in that place because I know I have someplace better to go. And here's the thing as well. So, what ifs don't always show up as what if I fail? What if I succeed? What ifs can be subtle, really, really subtle. They're sneaky, sneaky. And this is something that I noticed both for myself and with my clients, how the what ifs showed up for me. And maybe they show up for you in this same way. And I think that I think it's really important to sort of recognize what's truly going on. So maybe your what ifs show up disguised as preparation and over preparing. So I need to plan. I need to make a plan. I need to make another plan. I need to refine my plan. I need to get this plan approved. I'm going to start another plan. So maybe there's preparation, planning and planning and planning and planning and planning, but never actually taking action. The plan's not right. The plan's not perfect. So I just need to keep going, planning and planning and planning. And you just stay in planning mode and not action mode. Or maybe it shows up as I'm going to take this one more course. This is me. I'm holding my hands up. Guilty. One more course, and I'll feel like I know enough. One more course, and I'll feel more like an expert. One more course, and people will understand that I know what I'm talking about. One more course, and I'll feel really prepared enough. I will feel enough. Or maybe just one more course because I just need to make sure I understand everything and I'm just being thorough. And it slows you down from taking action. Maybe that sort of over preparedness, one more course, one more certification is really just saying, what if I fail? Or what if I look unprepared? What if I look stupid? And it's showing up in all of these other behaviors. But what if you could reframe that to say, what if a quote unquote failure, and I don't really believe in failures because I believe that it's all about lessons and what you can learn from that and how you can begin to embody a different experience because of that learning. So I don't really believe in failures, but what if that failure was just really an opportunity to grow, to learn, and learn from that wonderful, courageous step that you've actually taken? And so, what if that failure is an opportunity for celebration because you actually took a step? You actually started the action. You actually just began. And so maybe your what if is also showing up as, it's not the right time. It's not quite the right time. I'm waiting for the perfect time. I'm waiting for divine timing. And so maybe this, I'm waiting for the right time. I'm waiting for the perfect timing is just procrastination disguised as divine timing. And you're waiting for this aligned feeling, and I do believe that you will get those nudges and you will get those feelings, but sometimes the waiting and the waiting and the waiting and the waiting and the waiting is just another what if. Or my favorite was, I'm waiting for a sign. I'm waiting for a sign. And then you get the sign, and then you say, well, I'm looking for a signier sign, like something that's really a sign, because maybe that wasn't the sign. It was a little sign. I'm looking for a big sign. I'm looking for a signier sign. And so we ignore the signs when we get them because we're waiting. We're waiting for that certainty. We're waiting for the feeling that it's going to be okay. We're waiting for the affirmation that we will be safe. And so, what if that what if is just saying, you know, what if, what if it's not safe to start right now? What if it's not safe to start right now? And I'd like to offer that the best time to start is right now. And if not now, when? Because if you don't start, you'll never know. And waiting and waiting and waiting gets you nowhere. There's another tomorrow that's come and gone. There's another tomorrow that's come and gone. There's another tomorrow that's come and gone while you're waiting for the signs. If you're getting that inspiration, if you're getting that pull, then the best time to start is right now. Because the universe loves action. The universe loves movement. And when we decide to take that step, to throw away those what ifs and takes the step, the universe will rise to meet us and give us the things that we need, especially as we're walking that aligned path of truth toward the home that we are within ourselves. The universe rises to meet us, to deliver exactly what we need in those moments. Um, I don't know if you'll remember. So hopefully you've seen, I think it's like one of the Indiana Jones films. I can't remember which one, but he's in this cave and he needs to get to the other side. And there's a big sort of, you know, drop. There's a massive drop. And he's looking and he's going, well, how am I meant to get across? Like if I take this step, I'm surely going to plummet to my death, sure death. So he's looking and he's looking, he's looking, and then he realizes and he takes a step. And as he takes the first step, a bridge appears. And so sometimes you won't know how you're going to get to the other side, but the thing that makes your resource appear, the thing that makes the certainty and the safety appear is taking the step. Holding yourself back only makes you more fearful. So sometimes it's just about taking that first step and the bridge will appear. So maybe your what if is showing up as, oh, I'm just going to play small. I'm just going to sit here. I'm just going to sit back in the background. I don't want to be seen as being too full of myself or too much. So I'm just going to stay humble. And you dim your light and you quieten your voice. You silence your voice. Maybe you're afraid of being misunderstood or judged. And so you just turn the volume down just a little bit. Or maybe you have incredible talents and gifts and services to offer, but you don't fully promote your work. You don't tell anyone. So no one knows what you do. And this was a big one for me. You know, I was working and toiling away, sort of in obscurity and, doing great work, but really feeling a bit unsure about kind of telling people about it. And that was a what if. What if I'm seen? What if I'm judged? For ages, I wouldn't say that, I wouldn't call myself a spiritual coach because I thought, oh, what are people going to say about spirituality? And then eventually I said, well, who cares? I'm not talking to everyone. I'm talking to the people who are ready to hear this message. And so, I didn't promote my work for a while. So maybe this is your opportunity to say, actually, I deserve to shine. And the people who need what I have to offer need to know that I'm there, need to know that I'm here, I'm available, and I can help them. So are you playing a what if game with your ability to promote yourself and what you do? Maybe you resist telling your story, feeling that people won't understand or you will feel judged, or you just avoid visibility altogether. You avoid visibility even when visibility is actually the biggest key to your service. Being visible means that people will see you. They can begin to resonate with you, identify with you, be inspired by you. And so your visibility means you get to serve on a deeper level, a more profound level. And you're sort of denying your audience that chance for inspiration and healing and motivation within themselves because you're playing a what if. What if I'm seen and judged? And here's the thing. If you're playing the what if I'm seen or judged, you are allowing yourself to hide because you're thinking that other people will judge you. Well, those people, if they judge you, they're actually judging themselves. Someone else's judgment of you has nothing to do with you. Someone else's criticism of you is them really criticizing themselves. And so if you are shying away from shining your light, you are sort of allowing other people who are probably just judging themselves, and they're also afraid of stepping out and shining their light. And so you all get sort of stuck in this trap when if you actually went out and stood in your truth and used your voice and used your gifts, gave yourself permission to be the fullest version of who you are here to be, they wouldn't judge you. It becomes an invitation for them to do the same. It's an inspiring sort of dance that you begin to do because you don't know who's watching you. And sure, some people might judge you, but it has nothing to do with you. And so when you begin to shine your light, it becomes intoxicating. And then you realize, well, why would I do anything differently? And so this is an invitation for you to just go and be the fullest version of you and allow that to be what people see and experience and feel that full vibration of your true, authentic self. Maybe your what if shows up as, I don't want to bother anyone. I don't want to be in trouble. I don't want to be in trouble. And so you do things like you don't follow up, you don't return phone calls or emails. Maybe you downplay your own needs and you're afraid of really feeling into and acknowledging the desires that you hold for yourself and your experience here. Or maybe you water down your words, your truth. Maybe you hide your voice. Maybe you're just looking to be liked. You're wanting and needing to be liked. And so you hide how you really feel. And what you're really saying is, what if they reject me? What if they see me in the fullness of who I am and I still get rejected? What if I'm too much and they leave and I get abandoned? But if you shrink and if you silence yourself, they're not abandoning you. You are abandoning yourself. And sometimes when I speak with people and they talk to me about imposter syndrome, I said what I'm hearing is that the imposter isn't sort of, this version of them that, doesn't feel good enough. The imposter is the version of them that is showing up any less than who they truly are. because the truth of who they are lies inside, and we sometimes walk out and the imposter. Well, no wonder we feel like an imposter when we're being an imposter, when we're being something for someone else in order to be accepted, in order to be liked, in order to be loved. We abandon ourselves, and that becomes the imposter. When you are living in your fullness and in your truth, and you're allowing yourself to be fully seen, that's the juice. That's the good stuff. And so, can we step out of abandoning ourselves? Can we turn up the full volume? Can we speak and live our truth and, and step out of that what if fear of being rejected? And this is a big one. This next one is a big one. I can't do those things, or I can't start this project. I can't um, start, this new business, or I don't want to, write that book because I'm too busy. I have a lot on my plate. There's too much going on. Well, sometimes busyness is noble avoidance. Sometimes a friend of mine coined that term, and Dr. Zena Gooding Broderick, I heard it for the first time from her, noble avoidance. And sometimes busyness is noble avoidance because you just want to avoid risk. So you fill your diary, you fill your calendar, you fill your days and nights with stuff so that you don't have to acknowledge what you truly want and you truly desire. So you avoid moments of stillness because stillness brings clarity. And sometimes clarity brings change. And sometimes change is scary. So we avoid the whole thing altogether. No, thank you. Not for me. I'm too busy. And what you're really saying is, what if I slow down and I realize that I have some desires that I'm not meeting? I'm afraid to ask myself what I truly want because maybe something might change. And I'd like to say, what if I slow down and I meet myself, and I open the door to the best experiences I could possibly have in this stage of my life? What if I slow down and it all begins? What if I slow down and this is where the fun starts? This is where the joy is. What if I slow down and yes, I have to make some changes, and it's challenging initially, but what if the very thing that I've been wanting my entire life is on the other side of that? What if? That what if becomes really powerful then in those instances. And so this is a great opportunity to ask yourself, are my what ifs showing up as these behaviors? Am I getting in my way? Is there something else? Is there some other recording, some other tape, some other voice that's running in my mind that's keeping me from stretching myself, from truly living, from truly being in my joy, from truly being in my truth? And do I give myself permission to recognize and acknowledge those things? And so I'd like to give you a little process to help bring in more sovereignty and more power to whatever it is that you do next, so that you can leave those what ifs behind and reframe those what ifs as something powerful. So when you start to think about the power of possibility about making these changes and you start to feel like, oh, I'm not sure, I want you to stop. I invite you to stop and take a breath, breathe, catch yourself being in that what if space. That what if space that we know triggers things in your brain, emotionally, physically, spiritually. Catch yourself, create space, and then look around wherever you are. Count 3 things, 4 things, 5 things to allow yourself to bring yourself back into the present, because we know the what if is pulling you into the future. So bring yourself back into the present. Looking around yourself. Okay, so what is here? So I can see my calendar. I can see a beautiful stained glass picture, my lamp, my chair. Okay, so I'm safe. Breathe, create spaces of safety for yourself. And then say, what is the sensation going on in my body? I'm safe, but I've had this thought. So, how does it feel? Where is it? So, maybe that what if is sitting in your belly or your chest or your head, wherever it is, just notice. Notice the sensation in your body. Breathe into it. The breath is very important. You breathe into that sensation and then try to locate what emotion is connected to it. So I'm breathing into my what if, and my what if lives in my belly, in my solar plexus. As I connect to that emotion, it feels like fear. Okay, so what is that fear? Okay, so it's fear of, let's say, the unknown, as an example. Okay, fear of the unknown. So the next really important question is to ask, so what part of me is that fear protecting? What part of me is that fear protecting? What part am I protecting? Well, I'm protecting the part that feels really tender. I'm protecting the part that doesn't want to get judged, doesn't want to be embarrassed. Okay, great. So acknowledging that part. So what does that part need from me? So what does that part need from you? Asking yourself that question. So if that part is being protected because it doesn't want to feel a particular thing, so what does it need from you? So let's say, for instance, my part doesn't want to be embarrassed. And so I just celebrate that part. I give that part so much acknowledgement for what it's doing. And I celebrate it so that it doesn't feel shame, it doesn't feel embarrassment. And so, what does that part within you need? And so, just holding that emotion. There's embarrassment, there's shame. Okay, so acknowledge that. Whatever it is that you're feeling, acknowledge it. I see you, shame. I hear you, shame. I feel you. And it's okay. And just sit in stillness, just acknowledge and sit in stillness. Try not to push it down or away or judge it or try to fix it. Just acknowledge it. Just simply let it be. Something happens in the acknowledgement, in the breath as you breathe through it, just saying, I see you. I acknowledge you. I feel you. I'm breathing into it. Sometimes just feeling that can allow that feeling to dissipate. And tell that feeling it's safe now. You've looked around the room, you've brought yourself back into the present. So tell that feeling it's safe. It's safe. I will keep you safe. And so then you can begin the process of shifting those negative what ifs to positive what ifs. So as you're sitting in that space of breathing and allowing those emotions, those heavier emotions to just shift with the breath, you create space. And so, what if I fail can become, well, what if it's a success? What if I'm judged can become, what if I'm celebrated and they love it? What if I'm criticized can become, what if I inspire? What if they reject me can become, what if I'm accepted, and what if I create an incredible community around me? What if I'm overwhelmed? And a lot of times, overwhelm comes from the fact that we think we have to do it alone. So, what if I'm overwhelmed can become, what if I'm able to finally call in and accept support? What if I'm finally able to ask for what I need, for what I desire, and allow others to give it to me, to receive it? What if I'm finally giving myself permission to receive? What if it's too late? what if I'm past it can become, what if I am right on time? What if now is my moment? And what if it's time for me to shine? So, those positive what ifs do something incredible to the body and to the brain. So, we stimulate the prefrontal cortex with positive what ifs, and it really ignites our creative center, our problem solving center. And so things become possible. They seem and feel possible to us with those positive what if shifts that we're talking about. Our dopamine levels increase. So we feel energized and we feel hopeful. We feel positive. We feel like we can do and achieve anything. We stimulate our parasympathetic nervous system. So rest and restore becomes part of our experience instead of fight, flight, and freeze. So rest and restore means that we feel rejuvenated and able to step forward on our path with grace and ease. Emotionally, we feel more curious, more optimistic, and we're more trusting. And we're trusting of ourselves and in our intuition, our inspiration, and we become more willing to try. And that's the space of possibility. Physically, we're more relaxed, and we feel healthier. And spiritually, we're more connected, connected to our hearts, connected to our intuition, connected to that space of inspiration and guidance, that inner guidance that sits within us. We have more faith and we have more trust, and we're able to restore our power. And when we connect to that light, that divine light that we recognize within ourselves, our power centers, our soul centers, well, that space in us recognizes us. And it says to us, she remembers who she is. And ultimately, that's all I want for you to remember who you are, for you to embody that fullest version of you, to step through the space of possibility and shine. So, thank you for joining me on this episode. Thank you for joining me on this latest episode of Beyond the Nudge. I hope you feel inspired, empowered, and ready to take that bold next step into your year of significance. And remember, this is only just the beginning. We have so much more to explore together. Be sure to tune in to the next episode where we'll dive into living legacy. And I don't think it's one you're going to want to miss. So, before we wrap up, I'd love to share two causes that are close to my heart. I proudly support Women for Women International, an incredible organization empowering women in war-torn countries to rebuild their lives, and Mantle of Hope in northern Uganda, a charity offering hope and support to the victims of sex trafficking and domestic violence. If you're moved to make a difference, I encourage you to learn more about their transformative work and consider joining me in supporting them. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and please, please share this episode with someone who you think could use a little nudge of their own. Because remember, your best you is waiting beyond the nudge. See you next time.